All right, Kelly, I'm excited to connect with you today during this session. Obviously, we are live. So people joining, if there's any questions, comments, feel free to drop it in the comment section. We're having someone monitor that. So if you've got a burning question that you want to ask, feel free to do that. But just to kick us off here, essentially today's session, Kelly and I are going to focus on a major challenge in the market right now. And we get it, right? As an HCP marketer, reaching those HCPs online, right? It's more challenging now than ever. But the other thing is sellers continue to be challenged as well. And that started long before the pandemic, right? It's more challenging now than ever to get in those physicians' office, right? It's a roadblock. So how can you leverage video, but then also digital tactics? So we're going to spend a lot of time here, probably about 30, maybe 45 minutes, right around there, to talk through specifically what sort of engagement tactics on the digital side that you can be leveraging from early awareness, right, to consideration, to decision. And then ultimately, right, we want to get those HCPs to be your champion. So we're going to definitely get into the weeds about that. We're also going to be talking about how you can leverage video during those different stages too. So we're going to talk about different videos that you should be creating for awareness, consideration, decision, and then also which videos that you should be leveraging for the sales team, right? Again, the big challenge that we continue to hear from HCP marketers is it's, obviously the digital road online is challenging, but even just the sellers getting in. So what sort of video assets that you can leverage for that buyer's journey that would help, right, make that impact to get that meeting, or give them more clarity during that buyer's journey. So that's the topic, Kelly. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a shout out to, I will call them the unsung heroes. What sales teams are having to come up against is not easy. And so one of the things we do a lot is talk to our clients about what type of things can we do to help them really hone in on kind of a hybrid approach that is leveraging digital, but then also being able to kind of integrate that with in-person touches and leveraging digital to help increase those in-person touches where appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously one of those things, Kelly, great point. The teams, the marketing team and the sales team, they should be rowing all in the same direction and lifting everybody up. They shouldn't be in silos. And we're definitely going to talk about kind of that baton handing from taking that marketing qualified lead and how you can turn it digitally into a sales qualified lead. And again, it's one of those things where, to your point, marketing and sales, they need to be joined at the hip per se, and they need to be definitely rowing in that same direction. So we'll definitely get into, and I'll showcase, and Kelly and I will talk more specifically through some of these slides and where that kind of that transition happens, right, Kelly? So we'll talk about, hey, these are the digital tactics, but we know, right, this is an engagement journey, right? I think the big thing that we continue to have conversations with clients and just other HCP marketers, we're trying to engage these physicians, get their attention, and then nurture them right through that process. But it's sales has to come in and help, right? Really kind of close that deal, because this isn't like a D2C solution where you're engaging them all the way to like making a buying decision online, right? This is not a shopping cart experience. And I always talk about this too. It's one of those things where it's physician marketing is probably one of the hardest types of marketing you can actually do. There's like B2C, which again, there's challenges there. B2B, there's challenges, but physicians, obviously, as we all know, are definitely one of the most challenging audiences to definitely reach. So let's get into this, Kelly. So this is the engagement journey. So ultimately what we want to do is showcase these different buckets, what sort of digital tactics that you can be leveraging. And some of these maybe you already are, but some of these maybe you're not. So we're excited to discuss this digital journey, this engagement journey. It obviously starts from early stage awareness, which is more like top of the funnel. But ultimately, we want to get that physician to be like that champion, right? So when they go out to conferences or just talk to other peers, we want them to be able to, talk about your solution, your test, your medical device, whatever it may be, as like a testimonial. And really the goal here is, again, marketing, they're taking the kind of the brunt of what's going on in the marketplace right now to have that limited access with physicians. So it's really The marketing team is the one that's really kind of warming up those leads, right? As we mentioned, and then the sales team's coming in and obviously closing those deals. But ultimately it's marketing qualified leads, right? It's your kind of benchmark as a marketer and how many marketing qualified leads that you can generate, and then kind of lob it over the fence per se to the sales team. But there's a lot of tactics, obviously, that we'll talk through when it comes to digital tactics, but then also how you can integrate your CRM to look at a lot of this data on the back end to see who's the most engaged. So, Kelly, anything else you want to add to that before we get into the digital tactics?
I think you covered that very well.
Okay, cool. All right. So we know the first stage, it's awareness. And this is where you're hacking the attention of that physician, right? You're trying to stand out. And these are just a variety of different tactics that we know other marketers leverage. We leverage it for our clients to help grow adoption. So we're going to unpack a lot of these different types of digital tactics, again, through the awareness stage. The first one, these aren't really any particular order, I don't think, Kelly. So let's just kind of go through these one by one and kind of open up and have that discussion, as we mentioned. So the first one here is HCP one-to-one targeting using display, and then also pre-roll. This is a digital advertising component, right? The great thing about this type of targeting when it comes to digital, it is an awareness tactic, right? So you're kind of like hacking that attention of that physician as they go online. And the campaigns, as you know, Kelly, these are the ones that are, you set up. It's not like they're running ads on like industry publications. These are running ads on like lifestyle sites. So like news, sports, weather, finance. So as that physician is going online, just navigating personal media consumption, this is a great way to hack the attention of that physician. And it's one of those things where it's hyper relevant, it's hyper targeted, because the campaigns that we're running, it's all based on data, right? So it's an MPI number. It's a great tactic because it's so precise and laser focused. So if you're trying to reach any type of HCP that has an MPI number, and we all know, right, every single HCP has to have an MPI number. So we're leveraging that data, being 100% targeted, because one of the challenges, as we know years ago, Kelly, right, it's not about buying individual websites, right? It's using this data now. The technology's got so much more advanced now, so we can use that data. We can hone in specifically if you're trying to reach a certain HCP or niche HCP or a subset, right, or subspecialty, I should say, for healthcare. And again, it's as long as they have an MPI number, right, we can target them.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we hear a lot is people don't understand that display is an awareness tool. It's not really to drive direct response. And I will tell you that one thing in this awareness area is, if you can go in and utilize multiple tactics versus just one, it's really going to help accelerate and kind of get that HCP move down the funnel a little bit, or that journey a little bit quicker. So, frequency is really important, especially if you can utilize one or two or maybe three tactics.
Exactly. Spot on. And the great thing about this type of targeting too, it's since we are leveraging data up front with those MPI numbers, there's a report every single month that your marketing team can review. And again, this is where kind of the rubber meets the road per se, where the marketing team is trying to generate the awareness, the awareness of the solution, the test, the device, but they're being able to say, hey, this is the list, right, of HCPs that either saw your ad or clicked on it. So this really goes true to that. How can we warm up leads and be that champion on the marketing side and showcase, we're actually reaching these people. And the great thing about this type of tactic is they don't need to fill out a form on your landing page or website. That data, since we're leveraging it up front, we can use it during the reporting. So it's kind of like cross-referencing to say, hey, these are the physicians that saw the ad and then obviously clicked on the ad. So the marketing team is like the champion, right? Because they're saying, hey, sales team, like these are the 100 or 300 physicians, depending on the campaign, that showed interest, right? And we'll get into that reporting in a moment. So anything else that we want to talk about when it comes to the digital one-to-one HCP targeting?
Well, just how well, for instance, if you're doing NPI HCP targeting, say 30 days out prior to a conference, and then you're coming back with another wave with geofencing, the value here is that post-conference retargeting that is a part of that geofencing. So it's really important to understand expectations, that, when you're geofencing at a conference, do not expect everybody to come running over to your booth and say, we saw your ad. Really, where the value is that post-conference retargeting. That's really the power of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like just like a D2C campaign, same kind of principle where you're just trying to increase the frequency with different levers that you're pulling for the tactics. And so retargeting, and that's, we're definitely going to talk about that in the consideration stage for sure. And then just the next one on the list here is that you kind of teed it up, which is great. The geofencing tactic. And I'm sure some people that are watching this have, executed these. Maybe you haven't. One way we're driving really good results for clients, and again, you may be executing the geofencing this way too, but it's essentially at conferences, right? So any major conference that you might be attending, or maybe you're not attending, right? Geofencing is great because we know your attendees are there. It's an accurate within 10 feet. So if you're trying to increase just awareness or booth traffic, geofencing is a great tactic. So if you've got new data that you've got released, if you've got a new, update feature to your solution, or if you've got data that's coming out, geofencing is a great tactic for conferences, but it also could be used in different ways, right, Kelly? So I know we've kind of thought outside the box for some clients to say, hey, maybe you're not attending this conference because you just don't want to spend the money because conferences aren't cheap, right? So what's another way to at least show that you're there kind of in a digital format? And so geofencing is great, even if you're not attending, right? It's a great way to stand out digitally. We've also done it in non-conference manner. So if you're just trying to, focus on a certain region of the country and you're trying to target, let's say, certain incubators or lab locations, and you're trying to stand out, again, this is a longitude latitude. So it's basically rooftop buildings. So one of the campaigns that we've executed in the past is focusing on certain regions of the country, knowing that, hey, a lot of lab decision makers are in this area. There's incubators, right, in these certain regions. And so we can target them by rooftops, which is pretty cool way to execute that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think when we talk about geofencing, so often we're thinking conferences, but that is just the very beginning of its utility. You can literally geofence around a practice, a medical group, or even a healthcare system. And we have ways that we can make sure that we're not catching patients, but instead what we're really doing is focusing on the frequency of which these healthcare professionals are going in the building. So there's some really interesting ways to kind of utilize that beyond just conference marketing.
Absolutely. And the great thing about geofencing too, it's digital, so it's measured. You can get the impressions, the clicks. You can obviously understand what traffic's being driven back to your website as well. So again, a lot of these can be measured. The other one, if we want to skip, Kelly, to digital out of home, otherwise known as DOOH,
Yeah.
we see these all the time at conferences, right? We just got back from ASCO. You walk outside to get your Uber, Lyft, and then, or you just walk back to your hotel and all of a sudden you see all these digital LED signs. And I see this all the time in San Diego, some other major cities like San Francisco. So this is definitely another one of those awareness, top of the funnel stage types of tactics. And it's pretty cool because it's an LED screen. So it's really video. So it's not like a static billboard, right? It's a digital billboard that you can put video on there. I've also seen QR codes. Now, I don't know if a lot of people are scanning these as a QR code, but that could be a way to measure it. But again, at this phase, you're just really trying to stand out, right? Hack the attention of that physician. But digital out of home is something obviously that could be consideration depending on what you're trying to offer, right, for your digital out of home. So if you have a major conference that, you've got major data that's coming out, you've got a, maybe you've got a major poster, right? Or maybe you've got an update to your device. Again, it's just a great way to get that information out.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. And then obviously the last ones are kind of like normal, everyday, right? Social media is something that everybody's continuing to do. SEO and PPC is something that obviously you should be doing on a digital front. Email marketing, obviously, most people are doing, right? Email marketing now. The other one that I know we didn't really talk about, Kelly, but I added after our discussion. So this one's probably on me, but industry publications, right? So if you're out there, there's definitely trade publications like, I don't know why this popped in my head, but like Urology Today, right? That's an avenue as well. They have more of controlled kind of inventory. They're the only ones typically there that are selling that advertising space right on those industry publications. It's a little bit different than the HCP one-to-one targeting, where those are like on news, sports, weather, finance, like lifestyle sites. The industry pubs are obviously focused on just industry information, like I was mentioning, like Urology Today. And Kel, I don't know if you got any other industry publications that kind of are top of mind for you. I know we didn't discuss this, so I didn't know if you know of any other ones off the top of your head.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
But
Oncology.
yeah,
No, just
yeah, there
kidding.
you go. Well, what is the other one? Genome Web, right? That's another
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's another one that I think they have. You have to go direct to them, right, to purchase that. But that's definitely a tactic. Again, it's very similar to HCP one-to-one targeting, right, where it's display, it's a banner ad on these publications, and it's again great way to hack the attention of that prospect. So that's really the awareness stage. Anything else that we want to cover here, Kelly?
Nope. I just, once again, if you can try to leverage more than one and try to leverage a few of these tactics, you're creating a lot of attention and noise and disruption, and that's really what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to get on their radar for sure.
Yeah, spot on. The other big takeaway here too is you always want to take that omni-channel approach because you just don't know how physicians are interacting, right? They may see that ad on that industry publication and either maybe that resonates with them or maybe it doesn't. Maybe they see the ad on that news website that they're on for the HCP one-to-one targeting. Maybe that generates the interest, right? Or maybe it's the geofencing. At the end of the day, digital, you kind of have that opportunity to do it on omni-channel approach, right? You can take a lot of different campaigns and tactics and then start optimizing, right, to see what's really driving the results. And that's the beauty of digital. That's why I love digital for that aspect of it, just from testing, learning, and then obviously optimizing as you go for these digital campaigns. So the next one, once we get them out of awareness, they understand the solution, maybe they understand the data, maybe they understand that medical device a little bit more. Now we want to move them into consideration. And honestly, you're going to see some of the similar tactics here. You kind of teed it up, Kelly, earlier. It's that frequency, right? It's that reputation when it comes to that messaging and how you get that frequency up. You kind of nailed it when you mentioned the retargeting. That's a big part of consideration, right? So if you're running any of these types of digital campaigns, right, you're driving them to some sort of landing page, part of your website, right? And then you're doing some sort of retargeting them because obviously, again, this is not a D2C type of play here. We're not converting online. It's not a shopping cart experience, right? So really the goal is how do you create so much awareness and consideration that they reach out to sales? Or in a moment, we'll talk about how you can look on the back end of the CRM to really understand who's the most engaged from a physician. But retargeting for consideration, as you mentioned, Kelly, is definitely a big part of this phase because, again, you're driving all that traffic right to that page, and then you're just getting that frequency up.
Yep. And I think obviously we've got some of the same tactics here, but messaging changes obviously when we're talking about consideration. So we'll talk a little bit more shortly about what some of those different messaging or videos look like and that consideration stage.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's a great point because that first message, again, you're not giving them too much. You're just kind of piquing their interest, piquing their curiosity, be like, oh, yeah, maybe I should click on this to learn more. And then once they go to the website, we're assuming obviously they've read some things. Maybe it was a data poster, presentation, something about your device, right? And then what's that next right message that you should be giving them to learn a little bit more? And we'll talk about some of the video content that we're recommending for each one of these phases too. But think about it, when you're mapping out your engagement journey for your physician, right? We'll show you some videos, but you could also be aligning like, hey, during this first awareness phase, here's the creative that should be shown, right? And during the consideration stage, here's the different tactics, and then what messaging should be applied. Because again, the goal of this is to get them up to speed about your solution, about your data, right? About your medical device. And then once they're ready to talk to sales, they've hopefully right, are like 70 to 80% through that journey digitally. So when they talk to sales, it's more of like, how do we implement this? Here's some like FAQ questions that we want to address, those sorts of things. And that's really the power of the digital tactics here and the digital marketing. Anything else that we want to talk about through the consideration before we get into the next phase, Kelly?
I think we've covered it. I love obviously the omni-channel is the way to go. Once again, more than one tactic. And what's changing here is going to be the messaging and also what you're driving them to.
Yeah, it's progression, right? So think about from the sales perspective, they may have one deck that they share during the first call, right, to get that physician up to speed. Then the next meeting is a different set of information, right, a little bit deeper. So as a marketer, it's like, hey, what's some of that key marketing message that you can incorporate early on for the awareness stage and then consideration stage? So, okay, let's pivot here. So now marketing has done their job, right? They've created awareness, right? Consideration for their device, their test, whatever they're marketing. And now all of a sudden, guess who comes in to help, right? Close the deal, the sales team, right? So that's where you're at that decision stage. And let's go through here and unpack a lot of these, Kelly, because this is super important because typically what happens is, again, marketing warms up the leads. They do the baton handoff. Some companies are really great at these, that baton handoff, but some of them are still kind of working through what does that look like. So what we're typically doing is recommending, hey, use lead scoring if that's available in your CRM. I know it's kind of like a next level because what it does is all that data that you've had from the HCP one-to-one targeting, you're driving them right to the website, to the landing page. And that's where your metrics kind of takes over really. And it takes over because now you can see, okay, how many pages did they view, right? Did they download that white paper? Did they download that poster presentation? Did they watch that explainer video, right? Or did they watch that product demo? And so you should have all that data in your CRM. So if I'm the sales team, essentially what happens is you go in there and you're like, okay, let's see which physicians are showing the most interest. And now you have that data to understand so they can go through there and they can look to say, hey, oh, wow, this physician, yeah, they weren't engaged. They didn't watch video. They didn't go to the website or anything like that. So as a sales person, right, you're moving on to that next physician to see which data they've consumed. And then now you have a better context of that conversation. So when you reach out to them, right now, all of a sudden, you know that they watched that last webinar, right? Or they were at that conference because there's a note in the CRM to say, hey, they were at ASCO, they were at AUA, whatever conference, there's notes in there. So what we're recommending, it's no easy task, right, to get lead scoring, but there's definitely a good starting point. Everybody's got a CRM, right? Now, whether it's clean or not, that's another conversation. But try to leverage it because, again, this is a digital journey. You're able to get the digital, kind of like those digital breadcrumbs, right? To understand who's shown the most interest, right, Kelly?
Yeah. And what's really paramount here is, really maximizing the sales reps time with those leads that already are showing an intent. And if they're not, and they're not engaging, then they need to be put into an email nurture where you continue to stay on the radar and continue to kind of gain trust. And it's not easy. And so you just have to keep working at refining your metrics and also the actions that are triggering your salespeople to measure intent. But really important that they are really spending time with those prospects that really have shown intent. And the ones that don't, once again, they go back into some type of a nurture campaign so that you can continue to kind of move them along the funnel, but they're just not at that point where they're ready to be engaged with on a more manual basis or intent
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah, I agree. And some sellers love looking at the back end of the data to understand because it's making them more streamlined. It's making them more efficient to know, hey, I can go in there and see which physicians are showing the most interest, right? Why wouldn't you want to go in there and look at it? But not all sales teams are created equal when it comes to the data. Some sales teams kind of fight that. So it's probably marketing's not job, I should say, but definitely like philosophy to try to help them understand, hey, this data, this information is going to make you get in front of more physicians, which at the end of the day, right, as a seller, that's what you want to be able to do. The other thing about this data, we kind of mentioned it a couple times through the awareness consideration stage, is that HCP one-to-one targeting. So that data comes with specifically something where it's a spreadsheet. You can actually upload that to your CRM, and then you can assign it based on territory. So like the data that's coming through that HCP one-to-one targeting, it's actionable data, meaning like you get first name, last name, if there's a hospital affiliation, if there's like obviously an address. And so the great thing about the address is if you have an inside sales team or an outside sales team, you can slice and dice that data based on territories, right? So when you upload that list, you have the physician's address, right? So all of a sudden now you can assign it based on territories, right? Or if you have just an inside sales team that you want to, reach out to these people, these physicians first, right? Before you maybe set up the meeting with the territory sales rep, however you're set up as an organization, that's how, actionable this data is for that one-to-one targeting. And then also when it comes to the emails, obviously there's data on that, right? So you can see on the back end, who's opened it, who's clicked it, all that should be piped through to your CRM. And then obviously lead gen for PPC. Sometimes that's not piped in through the CRM, but it's something where obviously the marketing team can see if people are filling out forms, right? If it's driving traffic. So this is pretty much all actionable data when it comes to this decision making. But again, that's the baton handoff, right? From the marketing team to the sales team. Anything else you want to wrap up for the decision stage, Kelly?
I just want to go back and touch on some of our most successful clients have a wonderful relationship between marketing and sales. In so many organizations, you'll see a silo: marketing's here, sales here, and there's a little bit of talk between, but not an integration that really needs to take place. And some of our best and most successful clients have an open dialogue with sales and are asking for feedback. And these are the types of kind of co-selling, co-marketing opportunities that really help enhance and make sure that you're really maximizing salespeople's times with those best leads and prospects through, say, the NPI list, lead list.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, years ago, I think the silos were definitely happening. Nowadays, over the last several years, like they definitely need to be joined more now than ever. And it definitely goes down to the HCP and building those relationships. So the next phase, as I go through this too, is essentially it's the champion phase, right? So you want to get them from awareness, consideration to decision to being that word of mouth referral, right? So when they go to a dinner party or to a conference, right, you want that HCP to be talking about your solution, maybe talking about your data, talking about your test, talking about different case studies, right, for better patient outcomes. You also want them to get to the point where maybe they're a KOL, right? You're not going to have all of them as key opinion leaders, but right, it would be nice to have several that are raving about your solution, your test, right, your data. And then a lot of companies, clients are looking to figure out, hey, we've got major conferences that are coming up. We've got new data that's coming up. So they want to get a speaker bureau kind of put together, right, of the best physicians that are talking about their solution too, right, Kelly?
Yep. It's obviously this is the goal. And I think it's obviously not an easy thing to be able to generate champions, but boy, they certainly are worth their salt and then some when you're able to really get them over in your corner and they're out there, selling your product for you in so many ways. So it's really the goal for sure.
Right, right. And there's so much new data, there's so much new technology that's coming out. Usually you've got those early adopters on the physician side that are adopting a lot of these things. And
Great
at
point.
the end of the day, it's how do you get better patient outcomes, right? That's the ultimate goal. So you've got some physicians that are there, but then the other physicians are kind of, slowly coming up because once they see their peers adopting a lot of these things, then they just start obviously gravitating towards a lot of those solutions that those peers are talking about. And, speaking of talking about, the other great thing about these champions is they're going to be potentially available for testimonial videos, right? Peer-to-peer videos, or some sort of case study video, right? That talks about the solution, the device, whatever it may be, because these are the best videos that you can create. It's not the company talking about it, right? It's not the marketing person. It's not that subject matter expert. It's really a peer in the industry. So that's where you see the adoption growth happen the quickest, is when you have these KOLs that are doing these testimonial videos and also case study videos.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough good things about case study videos and how impactful, because it provides context to your product and solution. And once again, it's if it's coming from a particular peer reviewed HCP, it's just very, very impactful.
Absolutely. And this is a great transition, Kelly, because now guess what we're going to flip to? So that was a lot of the digital tactics, right? Different awareness stages, consideration, decision, and then obviously ultimately getting to that champion phase. Now we're going to pivot and we're talking about specifically what sort of videos that you could be creating on an ongoing basis, again, to grab the attention of the physician. First off, obviously, it's kind of it really aligns with the awareness stage of those digital tactics that we mentioned. These are the awareness style videos that you should be creating early on, right, to grow the adoption of your test, your solution, your device. But before we start, Kelly, right, we want to talk about doing a content audit, right? So if you're creating videos already, right, and you're creating these, essentially you want to do an audit, right, to understand what videos you have during the phases, right? So what we're recommending is go through, look at your website, maybe if you're posting these on YouTube, and start bucketizing these based on awareness, consideration, decision. And we'll help you through our conversation today to understand where some of these videos lie. But essentially for the awareness stage, you're just building curiosity, right? You're piquing the interest of that HCP. You want them to learn more. So during this phase, right, you're not going to showcase a 45-minute webinar, right? They're not committed yet. They don't know anything about the data. They don't know anything about your solution, maybe, or your device. So you want to be cautious in the video length, right? And how much information you're putting out there. Again, you want to hack their attention. You want to get them to the landing page or website. So definitely creating shorter style videos, and we'll get into the list here in a moment. But again, these HCPs are learning about your solution for the very first time. So the content needs to be fairly quick, fairly digestible, more educational. And again, you're hacking the attention. So you definitely want it to be compelling. Anything that you want to add there before I get into the list, Kelly?
Before you go into the list, I just want to kind of circle back and say an audit's really an important tool that you can do on your own. Just understand what you have and what you don't. And this really goes back to more strategic video planning, because as you're out and you're filming certain things, if you have a good idea strategically of what gaps you need to fill, you can very often be able to utilize a crew's time to be able to maybe capture a little more footage to fill in one of those gaps. Really important. You definitely want to take a more strategic approach versus ad hoc, where a salesperson comes up and tells you need this video, so you go out and create that video without thinking a little bit longer term what your needs are and where your gaps are.
Yeah, great point. The other thing about these videos too, to your point, Kelly, too, is most of these, as I'm thinking through what we've put up here, can be leveraged not only for the marketing team, but the sales team, right? So again, leveraging this content, right? And these are, as we mentioned earlier, it's like sales enablement, right? So some companies do a really good job in having a video library where the sales team can go in there, or they have like a tablet that they use when they go on to these meetings face to face, like a show pad, right? Something like that, where they have some sort of technology platform that they can leverage, which is great. But these are the awareness videos that you should be leveraging for that early stage, again, to get the attention of that physician. Some of these, right, if you're watching this, you're like, yeah, no brainer. But that's great. What we would obviously recommend here is a lot of peer-to-peer content, testimonials, patient side too. Not all physicians want to listen to other physicians. Most of the time they do, but they also want to hear it from the patient's perspective. And a lot of times when we're creating these videos, Kelly, as you know, it's like we're doing a combination to create a more compelling case study, right? So we would have the physician and the patient during the video as well. This is a great opportunity. Again, you're just getting the attention of this physician. You're going to have normal questions that always come up during your sales conversation. Why wouldn't you have like a library of objection handling or like data videos that talk about those frequently asked questions, right? Because they typically come up. And so it's a great way to educate those HCPs early on, right? To overcome some of those things. And then as I was mentioning, definitely try to leverage presentations and webinars, but make sure they're short form in the awareness stage. Again, they're not going to be committed to a 45-minute webinar, right? They see that and they're like, oh my gosh, 45 minutes, that's a heavy lift. Later on in the funnel, definitely they would be willing to watch longer forms of content, but during this phase, shorter is definitely better. Mechanism of action, if that's something where you have to explain obviously a technology or something like that, if you're in pharma, like you see these all the time, this is a great opportunity. And I think, Kelly, you nailed this when we had our internal conversation, a company overview video, right? Showcasing the leadership. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, it's the one thing that really it can be very memorable if you have leadership that is really articulating what their value proposition is, and really going in depth. So you start to kind of come to terms and start to develop that relationship with the prospect. And company overviews are a great way to do it. It's a great area to start really building credibility and a little bit of trust when you have leaders who are up there disclosing kind of values and mission and thought. It just allows somebody to become emotionally more engaged.
Yeah, it's not a logo, right? It's the actual, it's like a human to human connection that you're having with a leadership team that is super passionate. Really, it's usually like the founder or like the co-founders, right? And they know the technology, they know the solution better than anybody because they created it, right? So if you're able to get access to your leadership, and create those company overview videos, definitely a very high impact, right, during that awareness stage. We wanted to walk you through quickly, like a use case, like, hey, what's a business use case? And again, this is early on awareness, but that peer-to-peer content or that patient video stories, right? These are the most impactful ones because typically videos are something people remember, and especially when it's storytelling. So typically when we're creating these types of testimonials or peer-to-peer content, we try to make it more of a storytelling narrative because, right, people remember that stuff. A lot of times they won't remember your data early on, but they will probably remember that story of how this test, this medical device, this solution, transformed the patient's journey, right? And so we use these all the time. Multiple clients obviously using KOL, patient testimonials, and sales are leveraging this information too, right? They're actually playing these testimonials during the actual meeting, during the actual sales meeting, right? So these videos have really high authority and credibility because, right, it's not the marketing person talking about it. It's not the product manager talking about it. It's the users, right? Anything else you want to expand upon that one, Kelly?
Definitely. So, one of the things that's important here is video has become so rampant and so much. There's so much more video out there that you can't really get away with anymore just doing a talking head. So it's really important in order to really tell that story and get somebody to really remember and engage is to make sure that you're utilizing things like stills, additional B-roll that really help support and tell that story. That's important. The other thing is so many times you're not dealing with just one decision maker. So it's really important to start to involve other perspectives who are involved in that decision. Patient, although it doesn't make the decision, it's a high impact on a physician, or maybe it is maybe the product is being used a lot by a nursing team member. It's really important to show those different perspectives.
Right. And you nailed it too. I mean, this is shareable. These videos are shareable, right? They're digestible, usually 2 or 3 minutes. It piques that interest. And then people process video so much faster than reading text, right? So you go to a website, you see the video on there, you're like, oh, I'm going to just watch this real quick versus trying to, right, try to read a bunch of text. So video has that superpower, as you mentioned, for sure. And it's shareable, right? That's one of the key things. All right, let's get into the next stage here, consideration. And so when you think about consideration style videos, think about your sales process again. Think about how you're educating your physicians, either on the sales side or the marketing side, right? So you've got that first video that showcases your solution. What's that next piece of content or messaging that you should be getting in front of them? And so consideration stage, again, you're nurturing through the sales process, right? So you can start showing a little bit deeper video content. But again, think about how you would normally educate your HCPs. Like, what's that next set of information? Kelly, anything you want to share here before we get into the list?
No, let's go to the list. I think.
Let's not mess around here. Let's get in here. So here are the consideration style videos. And again, this is a little bit deeper. So, hey, you want to talk about your product, right? In this stage, you want to do, if you have something where you can do a demo, right? That's a great way to be able to do that. The other thing is you want to use, instead of, and we see this all the time, so you can kind of do it either way. You can either have a talking head person that walks somebody through the demo. We've had more success doing some sort of motion graphic or animation, because typically what happens with products, they change, right? So all of a sudden, if the person leaves, right? So it mitigates by doing animation or motion graphics. It definitely mitigates that risk. And you can update it, right? It's easy to change a script. It's easy to change a voiceover. It's easy to change visuals. So that's why we're kind of leading with, hey, if you do some sort of product video, demo, explainer video, kind of lean towards the animation motion graphic side.
Mhm. I think
Yep.
that's a great pro tip, as it were.
Yep. And then lab tour videos. So if you have a lab, this is a great way to showcase your technology, your instruments, the depth and breadth of how big your lab is. This is, again, that consideration stage. So maybe it's not an HCP, but maybe it's a different type of person that's learning more about your lab. Maybe it's a researcher, maybe it's someone in academics, but that's a great way, again, to showcase a little bit further down. Again, they're considering, right, maybe your lab as a partner. So why wouldn't you showcase that through some sort of video?
Yep. No, that's a great
Yeah.
point, Jane.
And it's a lot cheaper than flying someone out to the lab, right? So you create a really impactful lab video that can be shared, to your point, to other stakeholders in that organization. We're still recommending, depending again on your solution, maybe your data, maybe your test, maybe there's middle stage objection questions that come up. Again, this is a great opportunity to address those through the video, having your subject matter experts, maybe your KOLs even doing some of these too. But this is a great opportunity to kind of flesh out those last few minute questions before you get to this decision stage, before sales kind of jumps in. Because again, you're trying to provide clarity. If they're doing 70 to 80% of their journey online, right, navigating and trying to learn more about your solution, you definitely want to get those FAQ questions up there and addressed before it gets to the sales team, right? The other one is, we kind of mentioned it in the awareness stage too, but KOLs, patient case studies. These maybe are a little bit deeper into the solution, into the data, because you can have a little bit longer conversation. Because again, this is the consideration stage. So HCPs are willing to spend a little bit more time, right, during the consideration stage versus the awareness. So now you can start incorporating some longer form pieces of content. If you've got, product theaters, if you've got industry expert theaters, if you have webinars that you're pushing out, probably wouldn't go the 45-minute mark yet, but definitely keep them fairly short, digestible, maybe like 15 to 20 minutes before, again, they get to the decision stage. Kelly, anything we missed on this one for consideration?
You know what? It's funny you should ask that, because as I'm looking at this list, we did miss one, and that's scientific copy or content here. So very often we are working with principal investigators to really flush out kind of highlights, to go through an entire clinical trial, depending on the trial or the validation study, can be a bit of a daunting task that people don't have a lot of free time anyway, especially HCP. So scientific copy or content would be a really great one here, especially if it's being captured, say, at a conference where you've got key principals and you really want to be able to get that information out from the salespeople in a way that's very digestible and consumable. So we'll add that to this list.
Yeah, good catch for sure, no doubt. And then I'm going to do the use case for this one next. And then before we get to the decision stage, I just noticed a couple questions came up in the comments since we're monitoring that. So let us get through this consideration stage, business case use, and then we'll get to, there's a couple questions in the comments section. So again, I think what we ended up putting here is those product videos, and I kind of teed it up a little bit already, kind of spoiled it here, but what definitely, again, this is the consideration stage. So they definitely want to learn more about how that solution works, how that test maybe works, how that device works. So you want to do some sort of product video, maybe it's a demo video, but we'd recommend keeping it on the animation motion graphic side, because typically it's fairly evergreen. And if you need to make changes, it's much easier to do that. Clients obviously are using using, and everybody's using product videos throughout the journey, meaning like, hey, put it on your website, use it for social media. Sales teams typically leveraging this. A lot of times we're making a conference version that has the visuals, but there's no voiceover. And then obviously you can leverage it for emails. As I mentioned, this is like an evergreen. So if your product happens to never change or won't change for the next few years, right? This is an evergreen style video. And typically when we're doing motion graphics and animation, it's going to match your brand and your style. But this provides, like, this stage consideration helps, again, provide how that works visually. So typically it gets someone up to speed much faster. All right. I'm going to jump in. So one of the questions that came up about way back, and I apologize that we're just seeing this now, was the question about cost associated with the one-to-one HCP targeting and then also geofencing. So let's talk about cost for HCP one-to-one targeting. So it's a cost per thousand, but it comes down to, and Kelly, you can jump in here too. It really comes down to how many physicians you're trying to reach, right? That's part of the equation. It's like a formula, but it's a cost per thousand. You're buying ad impressions. And then what we do is we look at it and we say, okay, well, what sort of niche HCP are you trying to reach? Because each HCP group has a different number, right? So if you're trying to reach, like cardiologists, that's a huge group, right? So you may need to spend a little bit more money when it comes to reaching them. But there's also ways for us to scale down, meaning like we can do zip codes, right? You don't have to reach every single cardiologist unless you want to go national. Obviously, if you're trying to reach like medical oncologists, that's a smaller group, right? That's 5,000 to 6,000 physicians. So what we look at is the cost per thousand, but then also the frequency, because you can turn it up and turn it down based on the spend. So hopefully that helps with that question. And I know you had a question on geofencing campaigns. So the geofencing campaigns, it really depends on how you're executing them. If you're trying to execute them during a conference, what we do, it's like a formula. So it's a math where we look at to see how many attendees are there, and then potentially what's the number of mobile IDs that we can capture, because it's anonymous data. It's precise because we're using the mobile technology for location-based services. So like for ASCO, we just got back from that. That was 45,000 people. So the geofencing cost would be higher because you're trying to reach 45,000 people versus if you're trying to go to, help me out here, Kelly, like an AMP, molecular pathology conference, that's like 3,000 to 4,000 people. So cost would be a little bit lower because the audience. So really it comes down to the audience size. Kelly, anything else you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I'll just highlight the fact that the floor for something like that is usually around 1,000 attendees. We just did a conference up in Canada that was it was like 1,000 attendees, and it worked. It worked very well. But you really want to make sure you don't go below 1,000 attendees for geofencing.
Yeah, so there's some customization, obviously. It's not like a number specifically. It's really based on a lot of those factors. So if we answered the question of what you're looking for, or if we didn't and you've got certain other questions, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. And then the other quick question, I'll just answer this one, Kelly, is will the slides of this presentation be shared? Yeah, we're happy to share these slides. Definitely can send it out. Feel free to DM myself or Kelly, and then we can send those to you for sure. But let's wrap this up. I know we're at about 47 minutes, and I think we tried to keep it between 30 and 45. So tried to be cognizant of some time here. But again,
You're so tired, Jason. You're so tired.
So this is the decision stage, right? So again, this is part where you're starting to combine, hey, this person potentially could be getting to the sales team, right? So what are those last few videos that you want to provide even more clarity, right, to this HCP? And at the end of the day, we know that this is not a linear process. So some of these videos can be used throughout the consideration stage too. But I think if you start bucketizing these and trying to figure out how you can nurture these HCPs online, it definitely will put you in the right track. So these decision style videos, again, are a little bit deeper. These are kind of like implementation videos or like workflow videos to showcase how it's going to impact them as a organization, as a hospital, as a physician group. So some of the things to think about in the decision stage videos, hey, like a workflow video, like how's this test, right, going to impact our workflow? Like Is this an easy thing to implement? Is this a hard thing before we commit? So if you can provide some clarity, that will help the decision-making process. And if you can help simplify it through a video, right, that's a great way to do it. Also, if you have some sort of portal that physicians go into, that's a great way to showcase the portal to say, hey, these are some of the tools that we have to make your lives easier, right? If you implement XYZ test or solution. Kelly, is there anything else you want to expand upon that one?
I'll just expand on how important there are so many companies that are doing such a great job of trying to make it easier to do business with them. HCP portal is a great example of this, and you normally would think that these support portal videos would be more post sale, and it's really not. As busy HCPs, they have very little time, and if you have one of their team that's having to fill out a manual process, and it's challenging, it takes up time, and it's just one more thing that would potentially slow adoption of that HCP purchasing that for their practice. So support workflow portals are really, really important. We do quite a bit of these to help people understand in that decision stage how easy it is to do business with them, and demonstrating it on video is just a really impactful, effective way to do that.
Yeah. And again, if you're not providing clarity and these are questions come up, people don't typically move forward with a solution, a test, or a medical device or anything that you're purchasing if there's confusion, right? So if you can provide more transparency, more clarity through the video, and to your point, Kelly, like these are shareable, right? So if you've got shareholders, stakeholders, leadership, operations people, right? They're like, I don't know, like, how do we do this process, right? Boom. If you have a video, you can share that with them. The other great thing about decision stage is you can start incorporating longer form content, right? HCPs are busy, right? You also got to understand how they consume media. Not everybody consumes media the same. So podcasts, right? I would recommend doing some sort of podcast because you can put a QR code to that. You can go to the booth, you can scan that. Physicians travel, right? They go to conferences or they commute, right? So maybe they're going to their hospital, maybe they're going to their practice, right? Their clinic, and maybe it's a 45-minute commute, right? That's a great way to download a podcast to learn more about your solution, more about discussion. And that's later on, right? So again, they've probably learned a little bit through the process. And then again, now you can start doing a little bit different forms of content. Obviously, YouTube is a great channel for longer form content for like podcast content. So they have like a vlog that you can put up there. Obviously, for presentations, webinars that are like 45 minutes, this is a great opportunity to showcase those. And hey, we continue to have KOL testimonials here, right? Even at this stage, right? They still want to hear from their peers. And then this kind of piggies off, Kelly, kind of what you said too, like instructional videos, like training videos. Most people just feel like, oh yeah, that's after they've purchased, but maybe you just tease this up, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be like step 1, step 2, step 3, but maybe it's a condensed version to be like, hey, when you implement XYZ, here's kind of like the high level process of what it looks like. So we can provide more clarity to them before they purchase.
Yeah, that's a great point, that you can version those training instructional videos to be more of a decision stage type video by just a simple editing exercise.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into the last recommendation here for like, hey, what video has been kind of like the gold standard when it comes to like a use case for this? And this is definitely not a one size fit all type video. I think we put a couple different videos up here. So again, just providing clarity for some sort of like demonstration video implementation, right? This is that phase where if you move forward with XYZ product solution test, what's the implementation process look like? So some people may need a workflow video. Some people maybe need a portal video, right? Or maybe they need a, hey, this is the ease of use of this certain test or solution. Or to your point, I think you mentioned like, this is a great opportunity to do support videos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to show them, once again, you're taking all those barriers away or minimizing the barriers to do business with you. And if you can peel back the curtain and show them how easy it is, it's a really, it sounds simple, but it's not. I mean, if you can show somebody that it's easy to do business with you and even kind of help answer the questions about how this works into their practice workflow, it's even better.
Yep, just providing clarity. So the last slide here is just some quick takeaways, and we kind of mentioned this early on. This is the final set of information. So conduct an audit, as we mentioned. A lot of times we help clients conduct these. We don't have to. It's pretty easy. Most people just go to their website, go to YouTube, obviously, and start bucketizing, but it's kind of an eye-opening experience or exercise, because what happens a lot of times is a lot of people have consideration and decision stage content, right? And whether it's video, white papers, whatever it may be, but maybe they don't have enough when it comes to the awareness stage. And that's an important stage, right? Because that's where you're getting the attention of that physician to get into, right, your funnel, right?
Yeah.
And so, but again, we've seen it all over the board. We've seen a lot of early stage content for awareness and not a lot of decision. So it's a
And
great way to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think this is just a great way to just to kind of highlight. This is going from ad hoc. Somebody comes to you and they say they need a video, to being much more strategic about where your gaps are, and then finding those opportunities to cost effectively capture them, whether you're at a conference or whether you're at a company leadership. Really thinking more strategically versus ad hoc. It saves you, it produces much better content, because you're not doing it the last minute because somebody needs something, but instead allows you to really strategically plan a way to cost effectively capture those videos
Yeah,
to fill in those gaps.
no, that's great. And videos can be strategically used to your point 100%, because a lot of times it may be not just one video, but repurposing that video in multiple versions, because maybe they don't want to watch that long, again, 45-minute webinar.
Yeah.
Maybe chapterize it, right? And put chapters to it, versus someone early on not wanting to
Great
watch that
point.
45 commitment, right, for that webinar. The other thing here is, as we mentioned throughout the session here, it's connecting sellers with the different video types. It's also talking to them about what they need in the field, right? So, because a lot of times marketing may think, hey, we need this type of video, but then all of a sudden the sales team's like, we're not using that type of video. It would be great to have this type of video that we can help, right, explain whatever it may be. So definitely connect with sellers. And I think this is happening on a regular basis with most people, but if you're not, definitely connect with your sellers to see which videos would be the most important or most impactful for that journey. And again, most of the videos that you're creating can be leveraged by the sales team for sales enablement, and then also the marketing team. There just may be a little bit different versions, because a lot of times we've created internal sales training videos too, right? So depending on what you're trying to execute, definitely think about it from both the marketing side and sales side. And then finally, probably the big takeaway here too, Kelly, is you got to stay organized, right? So the best practice is use some sort of video hosting tool that has the library in there, right? Vimeo, Wistia, Vidyard, these are just some of them that are out there. There's also sales enablement tools that we know clients use a lot as well, that upload these videos to those as well, and they play it off those too. So there's definitely a lot of different tools that you can leverage, but stay organized, right, Kelly?
Definitely. And I see one more that we could add, which is you've got to make sure you're measuring it, because if you're not measuring it, then you really shouldn't bother creating it in the first place. And I won't. There's so many companies out there that create it, throw it up on YouTube, and then they leave it and forget it. And that's such a missed opportunity to continue to measure it, see what's resonating, and applying what you've learned from the metrics that a particular video has created.
1000%. Kelly, last few minutes here, 30 seconds. Is there anything else that we want to mention? I know we're right at like 57 minutes. So is there anything else in the last few 30 seconds that we want to end with?
I think we've covered a lot of territory here, like taking a drink through a fire hose.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I know questions come up. I just wanted to look real quick. Yeah, slides will be available. Just DM us, or if I see you in the comment section, I can send it to you direct. Other than that, as you plan out your digital engagement journey, we hope this has been impactful. Hopefully this has been helpful. And then same thing on the video side. So we thought it was a natural thing to incorporate not only the digital tactics, but then also video, because it's such a powerful combination to incorporate these two together. Because at the end of the day, you're just trying to influence these people online digitally as much as possible. So
I got one quick ask.
Breaking
So
one last thing here. Yes, get in there.
one quick ask. If anybody who's listening and viewing has a topic related to this area that you're interested in, let us know, because we would like to be able to make sure that we are delivering information and education around areas of topics that you're interested in.
Absolutely. Great ending. Thank you all for joining. We hope this has been helpful. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.